Okay, I'm back on live. I didn't give any warning, so I don't know how many people are joined, but this video will be viewed later. I decided to take some action. Everybody's talking about thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, and not talking about any action regarding Las Vegas. So I went to change.org. I started a petition. I included President Trump, who I am loath to call president, and 97 members of Congress. For some stupid reason, 3 members of Congress couldn't come up for some, when I added them. I could have added their emails directly, as I found out later when I added a couple of people from the press. But I started a petition. I invite you to go to my timeline and find it. And you don't really have to view the video. Video is just reiterating that there were 58 dead at last count in Las Vegas and 515 injured. I'm not sure if the 515 injured is in that news story, but I wanted to include the reason why I started the petition, which was the Vegas shooting. And I want you to go sign that petition, get it going. Congress will be updated with a petition. One thing that I'm figuring out here with this live video is I'm going to have to put my phone up on something so you can see my face when I'm talking, because my hand's always in the way. I'm always pedaling, and it's in the way. So, but yeah, please sign my petition. When it gets to 100 petitions, it's going to get sent to everybody that's on the list, and it's most members, 97 members of the Senate, and the president, and a couple of news organizations. I'm hoping to get traction. I want it to be shared far and wide, and even if they don't do anything, at least we tried to take action. All I want is to commission a study, just to commission a study on mass shootings, and try to figure out if there's any meaningful, whether it's mental health services, whether it's surveillance, whether it's gun control legislation, whatever it is, we need to do something to prevent mass shootings. We needed to do this a long time ago, but I don't want to make it about gun control specifically. I want to make it about studying mass shootings and figuring out how best to prevent them. So if you haven't seen the petition yet, go to my timeline, get to the petition, sign it, please. If you disagree with my approach, well, whatever action you can take is great. I invite debate, I invite support, whatever. So with that said, is there anything anybody wants to talk about? I see a few people have joined. So I invite you to come up with any topics you want me to talk about, and I can rant or I can just talk normally. I don't want to bore you with just exercising. These live chats, I've only done this 3 times, twice yesterday, once today, and I've enjoyed them. I've enjoyed talking while I'm doing it because it goes so much faster. I have to watch the time though, because I have to get Caitlin from the bus stop. So I might not be able to go the full 40 minutes, but I think 40 minutes will actually take me right up to the time where I got to go get her. So, but if you have anything you want to talk about, let me know. I'm going to think of things as I go. I will say this: the last meaningful legislation that was ever passed regarding guns was the Brady Bill. And the Brady Bill was passed because I think it was James Brady. I can't remember his first name. It's escaping me right now. I was a kid when that happened, but there was assassination on Reagan's life. Assassination attempt on Reagan's life, I should say. My gosh, I misspoke. I watched it on TV. I watched it happen. I actually saw the live event. I don't remember why we were watching it live. My dad was a political junkie. My dad was a big political junkie, so it was probably, we didn't have C-SPAN back then, but it was on live television. And I watched Reagan get shot. Pierce's lung. And then Brady, who was severely disabled after it, pushed for legislation, or someone pushed in his name. He was a big advocate for it and big activist against, or for gun control. And so we got an assault weapons ban out of it. And that was in the 1980s. In the meantime, we've had many, many mass shootings. Sandy Hook, where first graders were shot and killed. That didn't spark any gun control legislation. As a matter of fact, people were saying it was a false flag operation. This, of course, came from Alex Jones. Wouldn't you know it? Turn the friggin' frogs gay! That's Alex Jones. Jones is an idiot. Blowhard idiot. Well, he might not be that much of an idiot, but he has idiots who watch him, and he knows that. And he plays them up. He plays on their fears and conspiracy theorist minds, and he's a terrible human being. I can't even begin to list the number of horrible things he's done that actually motivated people to action. Not the least of which was people going to defend the Bundy family from the government. But the people that ended up, the Sin Snack Brigade took over the federal building in the park. Before that, they were defending their land. They were supposed to pay for their cattle to feed, and they didn't. And then Alex Jones made it into a messed up story. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate it. Sue signed the petition. I appreciate anybody else signing the petition. That'd be great. Sign it, share it, talk about it. Come up with a better one if you want. I mean, anything. I just want to see action on this. I mean, if it makes you feel better to, send thoughts and prayers, fine. I don't have a problem with you doing it. The only thing that's going to fix this is action. And I just want to see something done. Just something done. Anyway, we were talking about Sandy Hook. And I had a coworker. Oh, he almost got fired over this. A coworker said in our work chat, he said that Sandy Hook was a false flag operation. That Sandy Hook, there were actors, and it was something Obama set up to push gun control. Well, they say that about every one of these mass shootings or bombings or whatever, that they're false flag operations so that they can push gun control legislation. And it's never true. No legislation ever comes out of it. So, from Democrats or Republicans, neither ever introduced legislation. This time, I really want to push it. I should have pushed it with Sandy Hook. I did things. I tried to start a charity fund. Turned out somebody already had it. I tried to go through the Navy Credit Union, and no problem, Sue. I'm happy to have set that up. I tried to set up a fund for the Sandy Hook victims, because obviously they would need help with funeral expenses and some other things, and therapy because their child got murdered. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I fear that. I have kids in school, and it could happen anywhere. And, anybody could just open fire in a school. And, I think about that, and I'm like, something's got to be done. Well, I tried to do some things, but I didn't do a petition back then for any kind of legislation. And I wish I had. I don't know if it would have done any good. I'm sure there were I know there were some petitions going around. I did sign a couple things back then, but I really want to push this. This is going to be a cause for me. So, I mean, it's enough. When people can open fire in an open air concert, it's such a tragedy. And I know people in Las Vegas. I don't know any of my friends in Vegas who would have been at a country music concert. I do have relatives who would have been, and they aren't necessarily Trump supporters. Not that would excuse it, okay? I'm not saying that it would. But I have friends and I have relatives who would have gone to a concert. I don't know about that particular singer. But I do have friends in Vegas, and they could have easily been on the Strip and easily gotten shot. Jay, Laney, Toya, trying to think of who else isn't it? Jasmine. I want to say Vanessa is. I have several friends in Vegas, and Jenny is in Vegas, and while I don't think any of them would have actually been in attendance, it could have easily been him firing into people walking on the Strip. I mean, didn't have to be in the concert. So, I mean, it's scary. It can happen anywhere. So we need to do something to prevent it. Australia had this problem, and they did a bunch of gun control. Is that the answer? I don't know. I don't know if that's the answer here. I don't know if it's even feasible here. But we do need to commission a study. Thanks, Heath, for signing it. I appreciate it. We need sensible legislation or sensible services. We need some science involved. We need some experts involved, and we need to do a study. When Obama tried to commission a study through the CDC on guns and mass shootings, it was shot down. The NRA lobbied against it, and it was shot down. And this can't be shot down this time. We can't excuse it. We can't allow it. And in 2018, we need to make sure that we don't elect people who will ignore us. Princeton did a study on Congress, and this isn't just the last few years. This is going back. I'm not sure how far back the study went, but it went back a little ways. And they found that Congress only sides with the people 70 or 30% of the time. I almost said 70%. I almost said the opposite of what I meant. 30% of the time. And we need to stop that. We need people who represent us, who don't just serve their own interests. And unfortunately, we keep hiring millionaires to do the job. We can't hire millionaires and billionaires. It's because they have the money to run. Well, I want to say if Bernie Sanders taught us anything, that it's easy. You can fund a campaign through small donations, and he did, and he got some popularity. He just didn't win. But if you go back to Barack Obama's campaign in 2008, which I worked on, he took small donations. He had some big donors in 2012, but in 2008, he did it almost all through small donors. And you can fund a successful campaign. You need a charismatic leader, and he was good. He was very good at organizing, very good at inspiring, and we need that kind of leadership. And I think a lot of people, I want to say, I mean, I know a lot of people will say, oh, I don't want to be ruled, and I don't want to be ruled either. I want to be represented. But a lot of people need leadership. I mean, it's clear. When you have bad leadership, bad things happen. That's why we have Nazi rallies now. We have bad leadership. Here I am ranting, and I'm talking and talking. And I can keep talking. If you have any topics you want to bring up, you want to talk about something else that's not negative, feel free to... We talked about some movies last time. We talked about if you had a superpower, what would it be? We talked about a few other things. So anything you want to talk about would be great. Right now, this is what's on my mind, the mass shootings and how to prevent them. I don't know. I mean, people will say, well, if you take away their guns, they'll bomb something. Look at the Oklahoma City bomber. Yeah. I mean, people who want to kill a lot of people, they're going to find ways to do it. But if you make it harder, there's going to be less of that happening. And I can't imagine an argument against that logic. If you make it more difficult, there's going to be fewer people who are going to be able to be creative enough to do it, who are going to get away with it. Oklahoma City bombing was horrible. To me, Timothy McVeigh was part of the Michigan militia people who were racist, severely racist. Sue may know a bit about this. I know when I did a lot of joint rides with Eleanor Mathis back when she was still with FedEx and before she retired, we went to a lot of places in Michigan, and there were places she would not go, or at least not go alone, but not go because just having a black person in the car was dangerous because of the militias, where the militias were active. So you had to be careful up there in some places, and there's other places in the country you have to be careful, but that's what Timothy McVeigh was part of. Anti-government, completely racist, white supremacist people. And they don't really think about the militia as white supremacists. They think about them as anti-government types. So they were big white supremacists up there in Michigan, the militias. But guess what? Under Bush, I don't know how much Obama did as far as surveillance of white supremacist groups, hate groups, things like that, and white domestic terrorism. But Bush took that number of investigators down to 1 when he was in office. And I imagine Trump isn't putting too much of an eye on him either. Because Trump is a white supremacist. I'm saying it out loud right now. Trump is a white supremacist. He can deny it all he wants. But when he said there were fine people among the Nazis, and he called the people kneeling to protest police brutality against black people sons of bitches, he revealed himself. I mean, he revealed himself a long time before that. I said he was racist during the campaign. But the guy's a white supremacist, hired white supremacists to be in his cabinet, hired white supremacists to be on his staff. He is a white supremacist, and we should never have a leader who's that. Never. That should have been gone a long time ago. Should have never happened in the first place. But of course, you know, we had a very different country before. But now it's we have a white supremacist in office, and that's something we're going to have to deal with. We either have to get him out or wait out his term and elect somebody else in 2020. But you know, a lot of people who are racist don't really know they're racist. It's sad. I mean, I've had people who have done clearly racist things, who say that they're not racist. They only hate a certain segment of this population. Yeah, whatever. You know, you use racial slurs. I know somebody who played a game, a horrible game, called N-word baseball, and he and 3 of his friends would get in a pickup truck with no cap on the bed, and they would take turns. One person would be in the back with a baseball bat, the other 3 would be up front, and they would go down Arlington Road in Akron, Ohio, and they would take the baseball bat and they would hit a black person. If they dropped the baseball bat, they had to get out and get it. Got him in a few fights. But this is an awful thing. And the person who told me this story, who told me he was part of this was when I was a kid. The person who told me he was a part of this will claim that he's not racist and never has been racist. I mean, this is the kind of mentality you're dealing with. This cognitive dissonance where you can hit a random stranger who's the only thing you know about them is their skin tone and still claim that you're not a racist. So everybody who says they're not a racist and they do clearly racist things, it baffles me. I mean, how much cognitive dissonance. Of course no one wants to admit to being a bad person. And racists are bad people. You know, that's how we categorize racists, are bad people. They think, oh, I only hate the bad ones. Well, why did you go up and hit somebody that you don't know then? And the same person who told me this, I was hanging around I did a post on this. I was hanging around a black person at work, Carousel Dinner Theater, when I was a kid, when I was 17. Yeah, it might have been when I was a freshman in college. I think I was 18 by then. Anyway, I hung out with this guy named Lydell. Great guy, funny guy. Loved hanging out with him. And this person who told me about the N-word baseball that he used to play told me that I shouldn't hang out with him because he was an N-word, you know. I'm like, you don't know anything about him. You know, I work with him. You know, what are you talking about? And he still insisted. This is the same person who would tell me that Sprite was a black drink and grape soda was a black drink. And why do you like those things black people like? What the fuck? You know? And that's the kind of stuff that you get from racists. And they will deny up and down that they're racist. Because they don't like the label. You know? They don't like being labeled that way because they're a bad person. Well, you got to look inward. I had a lot of bad things to go through when I was 18. I will tell you the biggest thing, because I never really hated people on any basis. I had to deal with, you know, some racism that I grew up with and filter out of my vocabulary. And I had to deal with some anti-gay sentiment that came from my religion. And I had to deal with some other stuff. But the biggest thing I had to get over was misogyny. I had a problem, and this, I will directly attribute this to Rush Limbaugh, because he used to have a TV show in the 80s. I used to have a big problem with feminism when I was a kid, when I was a young man. And I've had to filter that out. And I realized when I looked inward and I looked at what I was saying, what I was doing before, not that I did anything really awful, it's just some things that I thought, things that I said. that came from that conservative mentality, that blowhard mentality of Rush Limbaugh, that they were wrong. And everything that I was looking at with women's issues was wrong. Abortion, my whole view on abortion was wrong. And I had to rethink it all, you know. That was the biggest thing I had to filter out. Because I even wrote, when I was in 6th grade, I remember trying to write a story called The Feminist Conspiracy. Oh my gosh. I think back on that stupidity. You know, we all have our moments, you know. And I had to admit that I had that in me, and I had to get rid of it, you know. Race to me was so, racism was so stupid to me. And that was because I was into biology, and I realized that all of us ultimately came from Africa. All of us are family. And racism is just stupid. It's just pigment. It's just freaking melanin. That's all it is, melanin content in your skin. It's the dumbest thing. But you can't deny race issues. You know, there's issues because people feel like that's a difference that matters. And it doesn't matter, but it's a difference that people make matter because they're of their ignorance. Well, in college, I think I hung around more people of color than I did white people. I hung around a lot of Jewish people. I hung around black people. I went to a black fraternity when I was running for undergraduate student senate at Kent, and talked to the president of the black fraternity for an hour at lunch. My friend JD took me to see him, and I just listened. I just sat there and listened. So, you know, I'm aware of the issues, and I filtered out all of that shit that I grew up with. But I never really understood racism. I just never understood it. It's always dumb to me. You know, you don't like people because they're poor. Well, that comes in all colors. And you don't like people because they're, you know, they don't want to work. Well, that's not something you can attribute to race. I know plenty. I mean, I don't know. It's just, it's all stupid. All their excuses are stupid. So, I don't know. There we go. But yeah, that's stuff I had to rethink my whole view of morality when I dropped my religion, because, you know, I had a lot of moral edicts from religion, and then had to reevaluate all of that stuff. Religion never taught me racism. Although one thing I did notice when I was in the Catholic Church growing up, and I noticed this when I was a kid, is I never saw black people in that church. I never saw black people in that church. And the thing is, it was in Firestone Park. St. Paul's is in Firestone Park. You would expect a few. You know, no, never black people there. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess one of the reasons I didn't really encounter a ton of racism with my family and my school is because there just weren't, it was so homogenous that I never heard the racial slurs. But I did have someone try to make fun of me in 6th or 7th grade, pretending that I had a black girlfriend, and they were trying to make that into a bad thing. I don't know. I mean, it's just, it did rear its ugly head here and there, but not as much when I was growing up. It wasn't that much a part of my life. But I ran into it later. In any case, I've been talking this whole time. I don't know if I've seen a couple comments about signing the petition. And again, I'm going to reiterate, I have a petition on my timeline. If you haven't seen it, go there to my timeline, find the petition and sign it. Pass it on, please. But I haven't seen a topic. I've kind of been ranting and haven't been paying attention. I've seen some people come and go. If you do have something you want me to talk about, or you want to talk about with me, feel free. There is a delay of about, my wife tells me 15 seconds, so if I don't respond right away, sorry. There is a delay. Probably partially due to the phone, partially due to Facebook. But, excuse me, I'm getting the hiccups. But if you want to talk about anything else, please let me know. I'm approaching my 70-minute mark, which means I'll have about 15 minutes left. What time is it, baby? 2:38. 2:38. Okay, so 15 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to have to go right after this. But I may actually stop 3 minutes earlier. I think I'll live going 3 minutes short on my 85. Because last time... What? Alexa, how much time is left?
No timer is set.
Oh, she said no timer is set. Okay. Sometimes Alexa will talk out of the blue. Oh, man. I'll never forget. Jeannie and I were sitting there watching TV. Can't figure out what was on TV that set her off, but all of a sudden she speaks up and says, here's a station you might like. Dire Straits, and then Money for Nothing came on. Having an Alexa. It can be a trip sometimes. 14 minutes left, people. Do you have any... I don't know if anybody's watching right now. If I have any live viewers. If anyone's watching live right now, please bring up a topic, because I don't run out of things to say, but this is totally one-sided. And that's cool. You can be passive and listen to me. I'm not going to talk about working out all the time. I am going to be working out when I do these. I hope that doesn't bother you too much. I'm going to be working out while I do these, and because I want to get my 85 minutes in, and it makes it go short when I talk through it. So far I talked about the shooting and my petition, and I talked about racism and misogyny, going through all that stuff that was in my youth and filtering it out. I think the last thing I filtered out was transphobia. That was the last thing I think I filtered out of my life. Because I had a hard time understanding it, but then I did some research on gender dysphoria, as they call it, and what they go through before, what transgender people go through to transition. And I met a lot of people who are transgender. It's not that I ever spurned people who are transgender, and not that I ever didn't accept them for their humanity. I've never had that problem. I might have when I was younger. I didn't really meet any transgender people when I was a kid. But when I was an adult, and after I dropped my religion, I did meet some transgender people. I met some at Kent LGBU. It didn't have the T in the name of the... they had the Lesbian Gay Bisexual Union on Kent State campus. And I met a couple transgender people there. And like I said, I didn't understand it, but I always accepted the humanity of it. I knew somebody in Michigan Atheist named Tracy who, she always accepted her humanity, never misgendered her, anything. Never had the hang-ups that people have. I didn't have to understand it to accept her humanity. I think that's one thing people need to get, is you don't have to understand it to accept their humanity. Accept their humanity first, then figure it out, because there's plenty of science out there on transgender people and how transitioning works and what's going on with the neurological wiring and things like that. It's all out there. So look that up. It's one thing, I think that's the latest thing I filtered out. I'm trying to think if there's any other prejudices I really had. I used to have a big prejudice against Southern accents, but now I work for a company where half the people I work with have a Southern accent, a slight one anyway. Southern drawl always used to make me think, they're not educated, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not true. That's the go-to voice when we think redneck, and not everybody who has that drawl is like that. So, I met a lot of people from the South who are highly educated. Your dialect doesn't determine your intelligence, and I used to have that prejudice. I'm trying to think of any others. I try not to be prejudiced. I do have a prejudice against conservatives. Certain arguments will come up, and I'll be like, okay, I know everything you think. Well, I don't know everything they think on every issue. Not everybody's black and white. Not everybody's, one or the other on every issue. They might have a different view on economics than they do on social issues, and I can't do that, but my big thing, I don't care if people disagree with me. What I do care about is whether they're civil about it, and whether they're rational about it. And when they as soon as they start going into libtard or something like that, oh gosh, I can't stand that. Anybody starts going into that kind of language, I'm ready to block, because it's not going to go anywhere. Of course, sometimes I'll have reasonable arguments, or maybe a little uncivil, but not that bad. You know, there might be animosity, but it hasn't gotten to a really terrible point. And then they'll go for my weight. I can't wait to get this weight off, because let me tell you something. It'll be so satisfying when they don't have anything to go to. They can't go to my weight. What are they going to go to?
Fuck you.
Yeah, they'll probably go to fuck you and block me or something. But I block more people than block me. But I'm not as civil as I could be. That's one fault I do have. I am not a flawless human by any means. I have many flaws. Procrastination, I've gotten over that at work. Fortunately, I used to have a big problem procrastinating on projects. I think I just wasn't into the job I was in before this one. It just wasn't as inspiring, you know. But the job I have now, I can't say I'm inspired. I like my job, but procrastination's done. Can't really procrastinate when you're dealing with huge companies that do millions of dollars of shipping a day. You just can't do it. So millions of dollars in shipping all across the country, you know, you have to be on your guard. You can't procrastinate. So that was the Caitlin alarm, huh?
Yeah.
So usually out the door about 2:50.
Yeah.
That'll make me 4 minutes short. But it's more important to get my daughter than it is to talk to you. I'm sorry. I don't know. Is anybody even listening? Is anybody even viewing me live right now? I'm curious. I know that it'll take about 15 seconds for anybody to respond if anyone's there. I saw people come and go. Well, I can't see you go. That's the thing. I can see you come in. I can't see you go. I see a like. I can see that floating by. Someone's there. It doesn't tell me who did it. You know. So, I appreciate you listening to my rant. I ranted more on this one than I have on the last 3 videos. I just talked and talked. I had things to talk about. You know. Just rambled. I can go from topic to topic to topic. I do wish I could bring people on the broadcast a little bit more easily. Jay got on the one time, and then Michelle tested it with me, and she was on, and there were some malfunctions here and there. Maybe I should do this on like a Google Hangout that I do on YouTube, because that would give us more of a conversational feel instead of me ranting the whole time. I know a lot of people don't want to really go live with video. You know, you might not be in a position to. You might be at work. You might be, you know, doing some things you just can't. You know, maybe you're just not dressed for it. You're not together. I get it. I don't want to be on video at work, or at some other times. But this is actually taking some getting used to for me, because I have to make sure my hair is not a mess and I look crazy. Basically, I'd like to have some sort of conversational feel. I'd like to talk to some people. Maybe schedule some people on like a podcast. That'd be kind of cool. But I'm always going to be working out during this. I hope that doesn't bother you too much. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk. I'm trying to do 85 minutes a day. I did 85 minutes yesterday. I'm at 79 minutes right now. But I'm afraid that if I go the full 85, I'm going to miss my picking up my kid on time. And we don't need that. I saw Nick join. I've seen some people join. I see Ross. I see Steven. I saw Bethany earlier. Sue. You know, I don't know who's still viewing. Who's still listening to me. I hope I didn't bore too many people with this. I think I might stop at 80 minutes and just do 5 minutes after I get Caitlin while she's eating, because I don't want to be too late. So, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. I did rant the whole time. I didn't really address anybody's topics, but once again, please go sign that petition that I have on my timeline for the investigation of mass shootings. Thank you.